Pour over is one of the best ways to make coffee at home, and it seems simple enough, but every single parameter that you adjust makes a difference in the cup. From brew temperature to how many pours, to how fast your flow is, to how you're pouring, to even how old that coffee bean is. And depending on where you are in your pour over journey, you'll have more or less of that knowledge and experience. If you're looking to simplify your coffee routine, or you enjoy some automation and guidance in making your coffee and want to be less hands-on or even almost fully hands-off, that's where the Cosori Juni comes into play. For full transparency, this is a sponsor review and Cosori did send this unit for me to test. However, I only ever partner with brands that let me review the way that I review, and I don't accept content direction, and I make it clear that I will point out anything that I like or dislike in my review. The sponsor review really means that I have to adhere to a timeline. And in this particular case, I got to test this machine for 1 week. I did play around with this and play around with all the parameters as much as I possibly could to drink as much coffee as I possibly could in that time frame in order to provide helpful insights and deciding if this is good for you. This is a Kickstarter campaign that is launching June 25th, 2026. So if you're watching this while the campaign is live, well, good news, this is still available at VIP price. You can save 33% off the price, which is huge. $199.99 USD. The MSRP is planned to be $299.99 USD. That's subject to change, of course. If you're watching this after the Kickstarter campaign, check the description to check the latest pricing and where you can buy it, and possibly discount codes if I have any. And clicking on those links and purchasing through the links will give me a little bit of a kickback at no extra cost to you, especially if the review helped you and it lets brands know that my review was helpful for your purchasing decision. And is an easy way to support the channel. Is honestly a pretty good pricing. Now, you are going to need a good coffee grinder as well to go with this. But nowadays, coffee grinders are really cheap. I've reviewed a few on my channel. I will link those in the description, but those are probably even overkill for what you need because those are espresso grinders that are capable for pour over. I'll link a couple of good ones in there. You can even use a hand grinder, which would be even cheaper and still very capable of making good cups. I myself have backed many Kickstarters. Do know that there is a risk with any type of Kickstarter. Knowing that Cosori is also a brand that exists already and has manufacturing power makes the risk for Kickstarter much less. The only thing that is in beta right now is the app, which will probably be finalized by the time backers get this in summer of 2026. I'm Jess, this is Gadgets Gear Coffee. Real world, real use reviews, things like tech cycling, coffee, and the gear that connects them. I do love well-designed gear that makes everyday life a little bit better. In this case, this is the Cosori Juni pour over. I came to know about their air fryers, but they have other home products as well, and coffee kettles. This is their first coffee brewing device. I have been starting to see more automated pour over machines. I haven't seen any two machines do it exactly the same way so far. What you get in the box is everything that you see here. You have two different brewer types. You have a cone dripper, you have a flat brew dripper that will extract slightly differently in terms of taste. The cone brewer is good for 1 to 2 cups, and the flat brewer is good for 3 to 6 and is good for batch brewing. You would be using that with the carafe that comes with the Cosori Juni. You also get 20 cone paper filters to start with, as well as 20 flat bottom papers. But when you run out of those cone filters, they'll probably be offering some, I would assume, on their website. You could also get a standard V6002 paper filter. And for the flat bottom, you can find those paper filters for drip coffee that fits for 8 to 12 cups. So easy to find anywhere. You also have a drip tray that sits inside of the base, and that's good for your carafe when you're using the bigger batch brewing. If you're making coffee for less people, you would use this and you would put your cup here. You also get this scoop that doubles as a clip for your coffee bags. However, I will say that if you're buying this, I would assume that you're buying probably third wave coffee, quality coffee, because why invest in something like this if you're not going to be using good beans to brew? So a scoop like this is helpful if you're in a pinch. There's approximate values of how many grams are in the small scoop and the large scoop. And then when you're brewing, they tell you how many of these scoops to use. This is something that I would not be using at all. You're likely going to have a coffee scale. I also have a couple that I will link in the description that I've reviewed. Get a good coffee scale. They are inexpensive. You can get a good one for 30, 40, 50 bucks. Volume for coffee beans is not a helpful metric, always go by weight. On a design standpoint, that's very subjective. I think it looks pretty nice. It does have a pretty large water tank at 1.5 liters, which means that you will be refilling a lot less in between your brews. There is, however, no filter that you can insert into here, so just make sure that your water is not too hard. There is descaling option. I do like the water tank is removable and see-through, so you don't have to guess how much water you have left. There's also a couple of marker lines. There is a water sensor in there, and when there isn't enough water, you will get a low water warning. However, if you are doing a big batch brew, here I was doing 3 cups at one point, and I had, I don't know, maybe halfway, it was above the water sensor, so I didn't get a low water trigger warning until towards the end of my brew, when it did in fact run low on water, and then it paused my brew, beeped, gave me an indication that I was running low on water. I refilled and then continued my brew. Be aware that if you were making big batch brew, that you do have enough water in your tank. Something that is a little bit of a negative for me is that there is a lot of plastic on here, and that probably is also to keep costs down. For the brewer bodies where hot water will be touching, this is Triton plastic, which is arguably one of the best plastics that you can get, BPA free, phthalate free, more heat and chemical resistant than a lot of other plastics. Very much food safe, FDA approved. The water tank is a sand plastic, which is similar to ABS but better. Also BPA free. This tank is not fully transparent. There's a little bit of a darker color to it, matches the rest of the device. This is also not touching any hot water. Now the water outlet nozzle as well as the drip valve is made out of PPE plastic, which is heat resistant. There actually isn't a brew boiler. The tube is heating up the water as it's going through, so it's instant. And that heat tube is metal, which leads me right into different key parameters and brewing options that you have control over. The temperature range of the hot water is between 176 to 205 Fahrenheit. 176 is on the low end. I'm not sure why you would use 176, but you do have access to that. I did some really rough testing, so take this with a grain of salt. It's not lab tested. I did it with the probe. I was sticking the probe under the nozzle to see. But what I could see is that initially not to temp. That could also be that my probe wasn't exactly well situated, because the moment the part of the probe was exposed to air, the temperature dropped. So it could be a little bit of human handling and error, and I did the test twice very quickly. It was like hard to hold it in place perfectly. But I would assume it's because of that instant water tube. But it takes a second for that water to fully come to temp, or maybe it was just my probe was taking like a second to get to the right temp reading from room temperature. As the water is traveling through the tube, losing some of that temperature as it is going through the tube, it did read at more or less 205 Fahrenheit at one point during the brew. So that is a very good sign that it actually is brewing at the right temp. Even when I'm using a kettle to pour and I set it, let's say at 205, the moment that I start pouring, it's losing temperature. The moment I'm lifting it up, it's losing temperature as soon as the hot water is coming into contact with different parts of the kettle. To me, that is very acceptable. And in my tasting of the cup, I didn't noticing that the brew temperature was an issue. Cosori Juni is also SCA home brewer certified, which is reserved for a small number of home brewers that pass all criteria. And it meets the organization's strict standards for water temperature, brew time, and golden cup recommendations. There is a SCA golden cup recipe available on the device as G for golden cup, and you can change the preset label to anything else, even happy face if you want. There is a screen, a display screen, very nice, bright, easy to read screen, and it has all of the basic functionalities in there, so you can actually brew directly on here if you want to do like a quick brew, and you can pre-wet as well. I think that pre-wetting could be an advantage in a few ways, because I think it actually would perhaps help with water temperature stability, because it will preheat a little bit the heating tube. If you care about the paper filter taste, pre-wetting is a normal thing to do. I personally don't care about the paper filter taste. I don't really notice it when I'm brewing pour over, so it's not something that I typically do anyway, but the option is there, as it would be for anybody that does pour over. Right now it's hidden, so it's sleek and covered up when it's not in use, and also allows you to remove the brewer because it's out of the way. But when you're brewing, this little part comes out, and then there's the nozzle, and they have something called laminar flow, which I have never heard of this term before. Just a way to say that the stream of water is steady and soft and doesn't have any type of splashing. You don't want to create any craters and all when you are doing pour over. That's actually something that I struggle with pour over personally because I'm kind of an impatient person. It's kind of nice for me to let the machine do that because I don't have to. From any decent pour over, that is what you would want. On top of it, you can also adjust the flow rate of the water in 2.5 milliliter per second to 4, which is a very good range. A little bit larger of a range than some other machines that I compared it with. You can adjust it to an increment of 0.1 milliliters per second. So you can get quite granular. Cosori Juni is addressing and mimicking that pour over behavior via two things. It rotates this brewer. That doesn't seem to have any type of speed that can be adjusted. I don't know if that's something that they could add in the future, possibly with an update on the firmware, but I also don't believe that is necessary. There are 3 pour patterns to choose from. Centered, which is right in the middle. Circular, which has a set diameter and just goes in a circle. And then there is spiral, which goes in and out. And as the brewer is rotating, it's basically getting all of your coffee like that. This is engineered and made to help with even saturation and minimize channeling. And indeed, post-brew, it resulted in a pretty flat bed. But more importantly, no deep craters because of that steady, slow flow, which is a pretty good indication that it is quite an even pour without channeling, and provided your grind size is good, likely extracted well. For all the AI generated recipes and quick brew, there is a 5-second agitation before blooming to level the bed. I noticed on my single portions using 200 to 300 milliliters of water that sometimes some grounds would remain dry for the blooming phase. You can always modify the recipe to adjust for longer agitation or more water during blooming to counteract that. Also worth noting that the vibration isn't subtle, a little on the loud side. So if you live with somebody and it's in a small house or apartment and they are a light sleeper, that actually could be a thing, but you can turn off that vibration. So it could be just something that you don't necessarily need. It also isn't very long, like it goes either 5 or 10 seconds if you even have it on at all. The rest of the brew is very quiet. There are 2 ways to brew. There is a quick brew function that you can trigger on the app or on the device itself. The quick brew function, you can adjust light roast, medium, or dark, but these things are so not standardized. Then there's strength, which is your brew ratio. There are 3 of them that you can choose. And then there's the quantity of cup. There are defaults already preset. It's in the instruction manual, or you can go in the app and you can adjust those brew ratios. You can also adjust cup quantity. There are also 3 presets that you can choose from already baked into the device itself. And you can, once again, change those presets. You can replace them with your own. When you use the physical devices to brew, something that I don't love is that the display shows you the number of scoops that you need, either the small one or the big one. First of all, I find the icons a little unclear as to which one is the big one, which one's the small one. The first time I used it, I made a mistake. Once you know though, so that's not a huge issue. However, this quantity is not going to be the same as the actual gram. I would have liked that it would be displaying grams. If you do plan to use grams, which is my recommendation, you will have to either memorize or mark it somewhere. That may be a big deal or not, depending on how you brew, depending if you're constantly changing between different coffee beans, different brew types, you're playing with quantities all the time, but you will be able to always consult the app, no problem. And there's also some really cute little icons and emojis that happen during your brew when your brew is done, like some happy faces when you turn off. I think that those little touches are always a little fun, cute addition. Let's talk about the app because that is a big part of what makes a Cosori Juni good. The app is polished. They clearly have a UX UI team, easy to use, it is intuitive. It works how you want it to work. Recipes, coffee beans, brew history, and then 4 different ways to brew. Super simple. One of them being scheduled. Prep your coffee ahead of time the night before and have it brew. The coffee is ready to go the moment you wake up, which is wonderful. Quick brew is exactly what I was talking about earlier. Roast level, the strength, and the number of cups. And there's the little edit icon, which is where you would change all of that. The 2 other modes is where we're gonna be digging into more, the AI recommendation and barista mode. Before we do anything, you need to add your coffee beans. You could press this icon right here and there's my face. That's where you would take a photo of your coffee bag and it'll try to populate based on what it sees. But you can also just manually add it. I tested it with 2 different bags, okay job more or less. So if you want to shortcut it, you could take a photo of it, just verify everything if you need to make adjustments. I found that the font made a difference, either too small or too big or too condensed. And then the other one, I did an almost perfect job because everything was very legible. So your mileage will vary. On top of it, the bags that I have are all bilingual, English and French. So it struggled a little bit with that, which is understandable. It doubled up on some of the items, especially the tasting notes, but it's so easy to X out. It does save a little bit on some time, which is always nice because I've had other apps where I had to add my coffee beans and it was a tedious process. Everything had to be manually inputted. It knows now how to brew your coffee. It even asks you for the roast date and it will tell you a little bit if it's too old. Now in my video, you'll notice that it's very old, the coffee beans that I have. It actually wasn't necessarily that old. First of all, those were beans that were off gas for a little bit longer because it was meant for espresso. But on top of that, some of those coffees I did buy, let it rest, and then I froze them. So technically the roast date is a lot older, but it actually is still fresh. Barista mode is simple. It is manual everything, all of the parameters I mentioned earlier that you can adjust and fine tune. I personally don't find it that intuitive just because I feel like if you're doing pour over manually, it's just something that you kind of like feel out as you're doing it. But maybe for some people that is a way that their brain works and it makes sense. What I prefer instead to do is use the AI recommendation. Even if I tweak it afterwards, which you can do, I think it's a good way to start because it's using all of that information that you inputted and offering a suggestion on what you use. And based on the quantity that you're using, you'll then use the cone or the flat bottom brewer. Now, these two will have a slightly different flavor profile. If you want to get that granular and you're like, well, I want a flat bottom brewer, but I want a small quantity, you can't do it. You want the flavor of a cone brewer, but you want a large quantity, you also cannot do that. So there's a little bit of a limitation in that respect. The AI recommendation is so easy to use. So in this case, I would select the coffee bean, choose the number of cups or milliliters that I want, 300 let's say, and then just click generate recipe. It's so hands off. Then a few seconds later, it gives you all of the information, some helpful information, and then you have all of your pour and then you can start it or you can save it. You can export it to one of your 3 favorites that are programmed on here. I forgot to mention initially you would connect this to your Wi-Fi. It still can send notifications to your phone to give you any type of warning to let you know that your coffee is done brewing, to let you know there's an issue with your brew, any of that. You can still get notifications on your phone even though you're not even opening the app, which is really cool and helpful. When I click on it, I can share this recipe. There's a community like section on here. I can copy the link, so I would assume I can share it with friends, which is always pretty cool if you both have the machine and want to compare recipes and notes if you have the same coffee. But I can go into here and further tweak it. And what is really cool is, let's say you're like, well, what does medium grind size even mean? You click on the grind size guide and it gives you all of that information. If you're wondering about any of this or you need some guidance or you have some questions, you could even click on what does that mean? And it gives you tool tips, which are really helpful if you need them for everything. Information, coffee dose, water volume. I can click on here and I can tweak all of the parameters, volume, temperature, it gives me info here, change the flow rate, pause duration, I can change any of those. Agitation. Even let's say I wanted to put less water, maybe I wanted more water here. Well, now it's showing that I'm off of the 300 milliliters I originally chose. I can always go to another pour and click auto adjust and it will auto adjust the water. So it really is very intuitive. That is the way that I would use this. Even if I wanted to tweak more granularly as a starting point, I think I would just use the AI, at least at the very beginning, to understand what's going on or to just let it do its own thing and then taste it. Do you like it? Do you not like it? Then make some adjustments. You will still have to know how to dial in your coffee, get the right grind size. It even will give you a recommendation for your grind size and already have a little bit of an idea of how to grind. You may have to play around with the roast level as well. I did played with 2 different AI recipes, adjusted a couple of parameters like the quantity of water, or if the coffee was stored less long, I like adjusted the roast date to see if it would offer me a slightly different recipe, and it did tweak the recipe. You know, when a bag of coffee has a lot of information to make assessments. When I am dialing in coffee, I already am looking at all of the bag information and trying to gauge as best as I can what that would mean in order to brew the best cup of coffee. I actually made a whole video about that. It wasn't a very popular video, it's fine. I'm not James Hoffman. I did the best I could. This takes out a lot of that legwork, but using the AI generation is by far the best. Now let's talk about the taste. I brewed 2 kinds of coffee. It made me like a medium roast, one that was a medium light, s'mores, chocolate wafer, red apple, an anaerobic washed, medium roast from Nicaragua, 18 grams of 300 milliliters of water. Cup came out really nicely balanced. I used my Time Order 78S grinder, which is a flat burst 70 millimeter balanced cup. Tasty, very clean extraction. I also had a Thai coffee, natural anaerobic, had flavor notes of maraschino, cherry cola, whipped cream, and it was delicious. The balanced fruitiness was really good. One of the cups that I made with that, it was a bit astringent, and I think it's because it was on the quick brew function. Having not changed my grind size, it's doing a lot less tweaking than having all of the information of the bean itself. I think the quick brew can work in some instances. I actually don't really see why you would use it when you could use the AI recommendation. You're just gonna get better results from the cup, and it's not that much time added to use it. AI recommendation 1, hands down. It was balanced, it was delicious. I don't think I would have changed a thing from it. AI recommendation hasn't let me down so far. Who is this for? Is this a good fit for you or not? If you want specialty coffee and you don't want to learn all the pour over technique, or maybe you have learned the pour over technique and you're like, you know what? I just want good pour over coffee. I don't necessarily want to deal with all that first thing in the morning. Get changed, make breakfast, and your cup of coffee is ready. Then perfect, this is for you. Very hands off, helps for guidance. If you want to brew single or batch, if you don't mind that the brewer will also dictates the quantity that you can brew, it does what it promises to do. And I'm happy with the results on both the user experience side, the app side, and the cup. If you want to get your hands on this at the Kickstarter price, or if you're watching this after the Kickstarter, all of the links are in the description. Do check that out. Let me know your thoughts. If you do want to see a budget coffee scale, which you're gonna need one anyway with this, you can check out a review like that here. If not, this review may be of interest to you according to the YouTube algorithm gods. And I will see you in the next review. Bye.